Thank you, Jessica. Hi, everyone. My name is Cathy Wang, and I'm a clinical social worker at the Memory and Aging Center at University of California, San Francisco. Thank you all for being here. Up to this point, we've learned about research opportunities and physical therapy-related interventions to support families and their loved ones with PSP, CBD, and MSA. In this segment, we'll be hearing from our panelists of family caregivers and patients who are gracious enough to share their experiences and lessons learned. So welcome, panelists. We have Doug and Diane, Chang and Daniel, and Sheila. So I wonder if we could start with Doug and Diane. Can you please briefly introduce yourselves?
I'm Diane, and I have PSP, and I'm in California.
I'm Doug Deaver. I'm her husband, and we live in just south of Santa Cruz, California.
Great. And Chang and Daniel?
I am Chang. I got MSE in December 2019, and we live in California.
Yeah, and I'm Daniel. I'm his son, and yeah, we live in like the South Bay of California, in Northern California.
Thank you.
I'm Sheila Malvania. My husband Joe has PSP Richardson syndrome, and we're in Northern California, Healdsburg.
Y'all. So what I wanted to ask is more detailed questions, and I'm going to start with Doug and Diane again. Diane, when you were diagnosed with PSP, can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yes, I was diagnosed in March of 2020, but I had some symptoms before that for a while, and I was falling a lot in the beginning.
She started having problems in 2018, late 2018. She was falling, and she thought it was basically arthritis or something. But then, as a physician friend of ours said, I think it may be something more serious than that. And so that's when we saw a neurologist, and she was diagnosed in March of 2020.
And how did both of you feel when you found out that there was a diagnosis?
I was expecting to grow old gradually, and all of a sudden I was having major problems, and so it was kind of shocking.
I think it's, she was used to a very active lifestyle. She did a lot of walking, bike riding. We traveled. She did a lot of volunteer work, and you start realizing that you're not going to be able to do all that, and you have to replace it with new activities.
Doug, can you share a little bit of how you felt during this time?
Well, you have a whole new list of things that you need to do. I mean, we live in a 2-story house, and we live upstairs, and so she was going to be having trouble walking. So getting the house arranged for her was going to be kind of a major undertaking for us, to put chair lifts in and walkers. And in hindsight, I wish we'd have had more help, because we designed to her condition the way it was, not to the condition the way it was going to be. And so we ended up replacing the bathroom shower with a walk-in, but we put it in with a 5-inch lip to go in, as opposed to just having it go from the floor. And we bought a walker that Medicare covered, but in hindsight, we should have paid for that one and gotten the more expensive U-step walker from Medicare. So, but getting the whole, arranging the house and the living conditions so that would accommodate her was one of the first major undertakings that we did.
So it sounds like after Diane was diagnosed, there was a lot of plans to accommodate the home to make sure it's safe for Diane.
Right.
Yeah. And after that has been in place, how do you feel about that? Um, Diane, do you feel safer now in the home?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
And I don't fall very much anymore.
Mm, okay, great. Okay, thank you. And um, what, Doug, you mentioned about, in hindsight, about Medicare coverage and also just upgrading your home and bathroom. Um, what other advice could you give for others?
Um, well, the patient's going to obviously have a lot of needs. We were used to being very independent in our lifestyle, and we would come together and share a lot of experiences. But we also had a lot of, I worked a lot, and she had her volunteer activities and things that she did. And she was an avid quilter and was involved in groups there. So all of a sudden, your world shrinks. And so you have to decide how you're going to deal with that physically, and you also have to decide how you're going to deal with that emotionally.
Can you tell us
And
a little more? Oh, go ahead, Diane.
I think it's very important to feel a sense of purpose in life. Um, and so, since I couldn't do a lot of the volunteer things that I did before, I now, Doug and I go to the SPCA twice a month, and because I figure I could still hold in my wheelchair, I can still hold a small dog and give it love and comfort. And and so I try to do that. And I try to I I want to feel a sense of purpose in other ways too. And sometimes I write poetry that I think can help people with other diseases and particularly PSP. And and I'm trying to create a legacy for my children and grandchildren, to read stories about what memories I have, and and and
Yeah. She, things that she did, I mean, obviously she wants to make a
Recording
difference.
stopped.
She wants to make a difference for others. So she enrolled in an observational study at UC San Francisco for people with PSP and related diseases. She then enrolled in a clinical trial, which she's still participating in at UC San Francisco. Obviously, like everybody in this condition, she does her physical therapy, and she had a lot of occupational and speech therapy. We've hired caregivers to assist, so we have caregiving 38 hours a week. She joined the CurePSP support group, the once a month group, and that has been really helpful to her to be sharing experiences with others. She decided that she wanted to donate her brain to UCSF for research as part of this. So she's really kind of changed how she wants to make a difference. And she's replaced, instead of biking now, she has an extra-cycle. And she can't really quilt or travel or volunteer much anymore. So she's kind of replaced that with trying to leave a legacy, basically she's written a book. She's in the process of writing another book to she can pass to the kids and the grandkids. She writes poetry. We've put a website together. So she's doing different things to try to basically keep her brain motivated and working.
Mm-hmm.
and I work very hard every day trying to, even when I'm watching TV, I try to do some arm exercises and things like that too. So I don't have very much downtime as pure relaxation. I always try to, and I'm thinking about how to do a new poem, and so I'm always trying to work on various things.
Thank you. It sounds like, Diane, you've really are making really good efforts for in a positive way to engage yourself socially, physically, and also emotionally. And I think it's very inspirational. And really quickly, Doug, I wanted to ask, how has your experience been as a care partner?
We're down the path together, and so we still have great times together. We still do things, but it's different from the way it was before PSP. But one of the things that is really hasn't changed, I mean, from Diane's volunteer activity, is that what motivates her is to have a purpose. So I think in order to be able to live with this disease, you have to really have a reason to be living and to be contributing and doing things. And she counts her blessings, and we try to have humor. I mean, you continue with the life you live one day at a time, and you just try to make the best of what you have each day.
Can I ask, Doug, having the private caregivers in the home now, has that been beneficial for you as a care partner?
Well, one of the things that shifted is now pretty much I'm the cook, I'm the shopper, I'm pretty much do most of the things in the house. So this has given us the opportunity to have assistance, to take care of Diane, so I can get out and play golf a couple times a week, and I can get out and do the shopping, and I can get out and walk and this kind of stuff. So it's been really, really helpful for us to be able to have caregivers here.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to transition over to Daniel and Chang. Hi.
Hi.
So, Chang, you had mentioned that you were diagnosed with MSA in 2019.
Yes.
Did I remember that correctly? Okay. Can you please share a little bit of your experience when you were first diagnosed?
Well, before that, the doctor diagnosed me with hypertension, and they tried many type of medication, and it did not help. And then they were out of ideas, and they sent me to a neurologist after a year and a half.
I see.
Yeah. And then UCSF, our appointment on December 13th, I was diagnosed with MSA, and driving home that day, we didn't know what to think about this MSA as well as disability. We did a search on the internet to find more information. We were very, I guess, in a way sad, and I did not expect this kind of illness.
Thank you. And when did you share it with your family or with Daniel?
I guess with the kids is on that day. But the first thought was are the children going to be okay? And then how to share with my mother, and with the family and friends. And we did slowly tell people about that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Daniel, can you share a little bit from your perspective how that happened, your experience?
Yeah, I think they just went to the doctor and they came back with the diagnosis. At that time, the symptoms were like pretty mild. So, and also like the MSA, I think, is relatively like a slow disease. So like at the start there wasn't that much change, or like not that much had changed in the beginning. And yeah, so I think that it kind of like helped me, or like the family, just like ease into it, I guess, because like he could still do like maybe 80 to 90% of the things. And like, yeah, just like because it was gradual, you kind of like have more time to acclimatize to the changes, I guess.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
so I understand that um, the condition has progressed a little bit. And how are all of you coping based on what's happening now?
We have to realize that you don't have much control over the things. Is to live with letting go of stuff and you have no control of, and let God take charge of things, and be trusting. Um, yeah, and don't ask the question of why me, and instead, what can I do? What really help?
Wow,
Mhm.
well said. Um, Daniel, seeing your father coping as well, this well in his condition, what were your thoughts?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think it's like one of those things where you really have no control over, and so it's just, yeah, I mean, it's pretty like encouraging to just see like him not giving up, I guess. Yeah, and there's really nothing like that you can do to make it better. I mean, things you can do to like maybe slow it, but yeah, so I think like just I think initially accepting that things were just going to slowly get worse was probably like um the biggest thing that we had, like I had to get over at first. But yeah.
Can I ask you a little bit more about that, Daniel?
Yeah, so um like from my point of view, I guess like before the disease, usually like I was at work and my dad was at work, so like once he stopped, or he like started to stop working, and so that was probably like the first biggest change of like just him being mostly home. And then but I was still kind of going to work. And then I guess during like COVID, when more like we were all at home, um yeah, it was, I wouldn't say it was like really tough, but it was definitely like different to see like him just start slowing down. And yeah, I mean, it was, I think like for me, it wasn't like I wasn't like losing like a lot of sleep over it, but like it was definitely like a change in like the home environment, at least, because like he was just pretty much at home mostly, as opposed to before when he was mostly like at work or somewhere else. Yeah, so um
Thanks. Can I
yeah.
ask Chang how your relationship with your son is?
It hasn't changed very much. The main thing is I tolerate little now, as in I'm more quiet, and yeah.
Daniel, do you agree?
Yeah, I don't think that much has changed. Definitely like talking is a little bit harder for him. And we used to take like more family trips that have like we don't do them as much anymore. So that's probably another change. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Chang, when you mentioned about your diagnosis, when you shared it with other people, how was the response?
I guess you learn not to expect much. Different people respond differently. Some will continue to be your friend. Some don't know what to do, and some will visit maybe once in a while. Yeah, different people respond differently.
Yeah.
Mm.
And Daniel, have you been able to share this, the diagnosis of how your dad is doing with your friends?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like my friend would come over and then I guess it's like at this point it's a pretty visible difference. And I've told some people, I don't know, I don't think it's like, yeah, I guess I don't think it's really or I think usually my friends just like take it pretty well or yeah, I don't think there's that much. Yeah. Because usually I mean my friends didn't really interact with my parents that much before, so yeah.
Thank you. It sounds like having a really strong family bond hasn't been so affected as bad having this diagnosis, which is a great thing. Um, thank you for sharing. And I'm going to move on to Sheila. Um, Sheila, please share with us your experience.
Well, Joe was diagnosed at UCSF in June of last year, so about 11 months ago. And for a couple of years, we had been searching for answers. We thought, maybe he had an issue with the knee, needed more workout time or things like that. But with increasing unexplained falls and an altered gait, some stiffness and bending, increased difficulty driving, reaction time, some double vision starting. As these things gradually started to happen, we realized it was something more serious. And pretty quickly after we got to UCSF, he was diagnosed. And initially, we were relieved because for 2 years of searching, it's good to know what's actually going on. But then very quickly when we started learning about PSP, we were shocked, dismayed. We felt like we're at a stage in life. We're looking forward to the golden years and all those things to do. We loved being very active, volunteering, hiking, traveling, fostering animals, and all that pretty much was not going to be possible. So it was initially super hard. Felt like we just fell into a pit of fear about how would we redesign every aspect of our lives from what we thought we were going to be doing to change it to accommodate PSP. And it's been hard watching him little by little have to drop his hobbies as well as the hobbies we had together. And then gradually he's given up all the home responsibilities. And it's been challenging to not only do what I'm used to doing, do what he's used to doing, and then the caregiving and just managing the things with PSP on top of that. Don't leave much time, personal time. So there was that sense of overwhelm. It can be very isolating at times, we found, just for the sheer virtue of his inability to get around as much, and for me just being too tied up doing all the things that need to be done. In terms of helpful resources, you asked about that. One of the things that's a little different we did, initially Joe didn't want anybody to know what was going on with him. He was really ashamed. But then a friend of his recommended Zoom calls, one with extended family and then one with friends, colleagues, everywhere from grade school to throughout his career. And so we did those 2 calls, explained what was happening to Joe. It was a way of getting the word out because we had been completely isolated otherwise. A way of getting a word out to everybody, explaining what PSP was, and then giving each of them a chance to share photos and memories on this Zoom, and it was recorded. And that has been incredible. Joe has watched that over and over so many times, and it's brought so much joy. In the Zoom, we invited anybody to come visit that would like. Many were spread out in other parts of the country. And in fact, it's turned out that many people have visited, and it's been one of the greatest things to give Joe uplift and just a real sense of joy, which otherwise has been hard to have now. And often when they come visit, as it is right now today, it gives me a chance to get away for a few days of respite and just get into a different scenery, different state of mind, a chance to really just come back to center and think about, rather than everything that we're losing every day, think about everything that we do have, that we still have, and how to enjoy those moments. Mm-hmm. Another thing that hasn't come up I wanted to mention, I attended a Zoom class put on by Judy Long at UCSF, Sustainable Caregiving for caregivers of people with serious illness. And she also has one for people dealing with the illness. And that's been tremendous. And from my perspective, it's been a way to learn insights into how to have sustainable caregiving, really avoid the burnout, and have ways to just find the joy instead of feel the weight of so much to be done every day. And Judy, the instructor herself, is also just one of the most incredible, kind, compassionate people who feels like she understands the journey, and that's helpful. Also, you ask about, what it is that's helped us to cope and accept. And I think, despite it being so hard at the beginning, it's really been the sense that everybody, sick or not, has their trauma, their challenges in life. And this just happens to be ours. This is our journey. And we're trying to learn all we can along the way. Learn to enjoy the moments, learn to not think too much about the future, but just what do we have in the present moment? Mm-hmm. Because it's not promised for any of us. Mm-hmm. Another thing that was helpful is the CurePSP support groups, and also the peer supporters posted on the site. I connected with one of those, and she's been an amazing help just at sort of teaching me how to anticipate things in advance. For example, if, as Joe's had increasing difficulties with walking, be prepared with the walker. As that gets more and more difficult, then be prepared with, for starters, a transfer chair, which has helped him to get up to the table when he can't scoot the chair in any longer. Just little things, always trying to stay one step ahead and be ready with the things that would be needed. Mm-hmm. Also, I wanted to mention there are 2 private PSP Facebook groups, which have been tremendously helpful because they're not open to all the public, just people who are in the group that either have PSP or are caregivers, and you can ask any question you could think of, or just blow off steam if you're frustrated or afraid, or share a great poem. I mean, it's been a help because, again, I think this can be a very lonely journey or feel like a lonely journey, but knowing that others are going through it too has helped to give sort of just feel supportive and give some inspiration to keep on going.
Yeah. Thank you, Sheila. Really, really well said. And you've touched upon so many points. And what I see is that you've come full circle. It's just so difficult when someone hasn't been diagnosed yet and not sure what's going on. And once you figure out what the diagnosis is, you've really latched on and just dug into more about how you can help Joe and yourself. And thank you for mentioning all those resources that you are and have had access to. I wanted to kind of open it up to our panelists to ask if there are any additional services, advice to give to our audience.
I just think it's really important to count your blessings and feel like you can appreciate the things that you still have, and instead of feeling, instead of concentrating on what you've lost. And for example, we're having a lot more visits from our daughters who live in Mexico and Alaska. And so we're grateful for that because they want to come help. And so I think it's important to keep socializing and keep exercising as much as you can.
One thing that's kind of changed, I mean, having a support group of people is really helpful. And because Diane really can't go out anymore, we don't go to restaurants to meet people. It's hard for us to go to houses because it usually involves steps and, logistics. But a lot of people now are coming here. So they'll bring a dinner or we'll cook here. So we're doing a lot more entertaining at home, but it still allows us to have the social interaction without, and people have been super accommodating versus having us try to get to a car, get to a restaurant or to a home and do that. So, but having socialization, I think, is really key.
Thank you.
Having your friend and come visit is very helpful. Different people, different time of the week to come is helpful for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one like positive thing, well, like one thing that, because I think like the disease does have a lot of negatives, but there were like some positives which I noticed, and one was that my dad has a lot more like friends who come and like visit him. Before he was mostly just like working and like he would just see colleagues, but now there's always like people at the house coming to visit him and like just like spending time with him, which I think is yeah, it's something that maybe might not have happened without the disease. And so yeah, it's like,
And also it will teach you to be real humble right now.
What do you say?
Humble.
To be more humble, yeah. And it's that silver lining, right, Daniel, as you were saying, it's having this disease, but yet it's just opened up the social opportunity for your dad. And it sounds like, Daniel, you really appreciate the social visits. It really, and the connections and support groups and other people who may have similar diagnosis. It's good for the soul, really. Thank you for sharing. Sheila or anyone else, did you want to have other?
The thing I wanted to point out, I mean, it goes without saying that it's a progressive disease, but really understanding and embracing that is important, because I think for us, each time we finally were able to wrap our hands around some of the losses, then things would go along and then drop off again. And so just knowing that things are going to continue to change along the way is important to realize. And to Daniel's point about, the silver lining, because it is progressive, it means we've learned to be grateful for all the time that we do have to reestablish those connections, to learn and grow from it, as opposed to it just being something instant, So there's a way to make the best of that too, and that's been helpful.
Yeah, really great points. Thank you. I wanted to kind of have a little segue before a Q&A section. I thought it would be great. We were talking about coping strategies and so forth. And one of the things that we thought it would be great was for Diane to share a poem with us.
Yes, I memorized some of my poems to give my brain some extra exercise. And so I'm going to recite that, and I'll probably close my eyes so I can not be distracted with other things. So we are very special people, all the folks with PSP. There aren't many others like us. We're a rare minority. We need to face the fact it's not a common illness here. We are rare and we're unique. That much is very clear.
It has changed.
It has changed our lives completely. No going back to life before.
Life will never be.
Our lives will never be the same. We've added something more. This presents a mighty challenge. I know it has challenged me. We are rare, unique, and special, all the folks with PSP.
Thank you so much. At the same time, I understand that you just created your website, and
Yep.
I wonder if, Doug, you could just kind of share briefly. You've been busy, Diane.
So when, she has she's done over 100 quilts, and so she wants to be able to display that. And then she's also, written poetry before she got PSP and after PSP. And then we wanted to do the website because a lot of people, it's a rare disease and most people have never heard of it. So to kind of, this is something we can share with people and, talk about what PSP is and see poems that she has that really describe her basically her path through the disease. So she just has a section of her quilts, and I won't go through them in any detail. Talks about that. She has her poetry, and then she has poetry about PSP, so that we can send this to people and share, so that they learn a lot more about what her disease is. So that's yeah.
Thanks so much, Doug. And Diane, I will repeat myself. You've been very busy. And I'm sure you were busy before your diagnosis, but you
Right, I was.
shifted to making this your passion, and I really appreciate your sharing. I wanted to go through the Q&A section. I apologize, I have to reshift this. Okay, some questions have come in, and please feel free to chime in if you have any suggestions. And one has to do with long distance caregiving. How does someone take care or support their loved one when they're thousands of miles away? Any tips, pointers?
Well, I think from our standpoint, one thing that's having the disease, there's a lot of boredom that comes with it, because you can't do a lot of things that you used to do. So if from a long distance, communication is critical. Call people, even if you don't have much to say, just to, say, how's your day going? Here's what I did, or whatever. But just something to break up a lot of the boredom that people with PSP have.
I guess is to spend time with them. Remember, it's only going to get worse. So spending time in education is important.
Time with others, yeah, thank you. And Sheila, you were talking about how Joe now has this huge group of folks who are on video with him. So, I mean, that must be something for him. He really, looks forward to.
And he does revisit those, not only recordings of the previous ones, but those same people are now kind of in a network, and they will follow up. Sometimes they do Zoom calls, and honestly, the laughter I hear and the joy on his face is just incredible when those things happen, and they keep texting, they call. So finding a way to ignite those connections for the person going through that, I think, is wonderful. Other things people have done long distance, since we don't really have anybody close to us in terms of family. We moved to the area not so long ago. People send audiobooks. They've sent little puzzles to do with your hand and, games and things like that. And those are also interesting and engaging.
Great. Thank you. Okay, great. And actually, I just like to move. Speaking of activities that are engaging, someone asked, what are some in-home activities to do with your loved ones instead of watching TV all day?
We blow bubbles sometimes.
You blow bubbles? Is that what you said?
Right.
That's great. Okay. That's wonderful. Anything else that you guys would suggest?
Looking at photos has been fun for us too, because it brings back memories. I think not only good memories, but for Joe, I see that that's remembering times when he didn't have the challenges that he has now. So it's, again, ways of remembering all that joy and bringing that forward.
Great.
Other things, I mean, just sitting outside and enjoying the breeze and hearing the bird song, or friends, having people over to just be together sometimes. And it doesn't always have to be a lot of talking. It can just be the presence that feels good.
To be in the moment. Sometimes people will just do virtual exercises on YouTube, just gentle chair yoga. It's kind of nice to move about, go out for walks if that's possible. Chang or Daniel, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, visit is usually very good. Share meals together, or even handyman work is helpful.
Yeah, and I think,
Go ahead.
yeah, and there's some people who come and play like kind of board games, especially like ones that don't are more like slower, I guess. Yeah, so I think somebody comes to play dominoes with my dad, which I think he enjoys.
That's great. Really good point. Yeah, these board games, or yeah, if art is not of an interest, yeah, that's true. Thank you. The next question is about just how to manage anxiety and frustration for both yourselves and your loved ones. I'm like Sheila, you were mentioning there are times where it's going to be frustrating because this condition is progressing. And while things are stable, there's going to be those times where we're human, we get frustrated. What are your tips on how you've coped?
One of the biggest ones has been to have a place of refuge. So that's a place, whether it's a room in the house or out on the back porch or a walk close by in nature, but having a place that when you're frustrated, you could go, whether it's 2 minutes or an hour or whatever, but also when you're not, just a place to know that you can go and just, again, sort of refocus on what's important and let go of the other things. I think it's important also as caregivers and for people with the diagnoses to let our feelings flow, to feel what we're feeling. It's so often we all try to, you have to be strong, don't cry, all that. But I think it's important to let those feelings out. Sometimes when we cry together, it's helpful. Sometimes it's good to have that alone time too, to just process through that. One of the things I've learned, maybe through Judy's class and some of these others, is you can't bypass grief. You can't bypass the frustration and all those things. You really have to go through those. Otherwise, they can just build up inside. So learning to just have a place and realize the time to do that is important.
Mhm. Thank you. And it's not,
I think Sheila, I think we agree with her 100%. I mean, we talk about things to try to keep ourselves uplifted and going, but for Diane, nighttime is really hard for her. She's tired. It takes a tremendous amount of energy just to go to the bathroom for her. So by the end of the day, she's exhausted. And so there are times when she, it gets emotional, and we just have to understand that that's part of the disease. And it's hard at the time, but you just have to let it go, and then let the process take its course, and cry or get frustrated or whatever you have to do, and then you get past it, and then then you get settled back down again.
Great, thank you. Thoughts, Chang or Daniel?
I guess at the end of the thing is to accept what is happening to you. You cannot ask why, because you have no answer. But the better question is what to do next. Learn things to do slowly. And yeah.
Set new goals.
Sorry, Doug, did you say something?
No, I said something. Set new goals.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Yeah. At the end of the day, yeah, set new goals and don't ask why. Yeah. Figure out what you want to do. Really good reminders. Thank you.
I
There's
think part of it has to do with sleep too. I think a lot of the frustration, people with PSP, and Diane's in that group, have a difficult time sleeping. And when you're, running on 4 or 5 hours of sleep a day, it makes, the frustration even harder because you're just tired. And so, we've gotten prescription medication now to help her sleep better. And I think we both think that that's actually helped some too.
Okay, great. And I think, yes, it's important to try and figure out where the frustration's coming from. And it's good to update your neurologist or your primary physician of what are other options if you've tried the non-pharmaceutical approaches. So I think communication with your doctors is really important. There is another question about, which I think some of you have addressed, but I wondered if you could talk more about it, outside resources that someone can help. A partner caring for a loved one with PSP, such as the private caregivers, having them in place. And are there other outside resources to help the spouses or care partners that you'd
I think
suggest?
there's a number of support groups. I think, several have been mentioned through, CurePSP and UCSF. And we also participate in, sessions with the Brain Donation Network. So I think there are a number of them, Parkinsonism related, so not necessarily just PSP. So, but I think there are a number of them. It's just finding them.
Okay. All right. How about the next question is, do you have any tips about car transportation? Especially when mobility could be, a concern.
Well, what's the question?
Any tips about car transportation, getting from one place to another?
And definitely wear a gate belt, because that helps a lot getting into the car and getting out of the car.
Another thing that helped a lot that we learned about from a friend is this thing called a car chang for getting in and out of the car. So it's just a small device from Amazon that clips into that thing in the opening of the car, very sturdily. So it's like a thing to grab onto to get in and to get out. It's super sturdy that way. And it's a small thing that Joe just keeps in the seat of his walker, the lighter weight one that we take in the car all the time. And so if somebody else picks him up to take him outside or take him to lunch, then, he's always got that. And that's been a simple, easy thing for starters, as well as even now that he's on a walker full time, that's a good thing for getting in.
Sheila, do you mind repeating what that device is, or the name of the device?
It's called a car cane, like a cane that you would use with your hand, car cane. And if you search that on Amazon or anywhere else, it's been a great new tool for us. It's also got a little flashlight on it, and a cutter if you had to cut the seat belt.
Okay.
So it's a neat tool I learned about recently.
Wonderful. Thank you. Chang, did you want to say something?
No.
No. Oh, okay. Sorry.
One thing, a couple of things we've done. One is we have an SUV and we have a standard sedan, and we found that, we thought that the SUV would actually be better because it had more space, but it's higher up from the ground. And so we've actually ended up using the sedan. So we find that the lower the car is to the ground, the better it is for Diane to get in and out of it. I mean, nothing's easy, but that seems to be a whole lot better than the SUV. And the other thing that we've used some of, and we'll probably end up using more, is our local public transportation has a Lyft, service that basically is it's either free or very inexpensive, where they actually bring a van to your house and take you to wherever you want to go.
Yeah, great point. And sometimes they have the like you were saying, the lift where for folks who are in a wheelchair, or sometimes just the regular shuttle option.
Yeah, this is Lyft line, so the van that comes actually has a wheelchair lift right there.
Great. Thank you for bringing all that up. And another question about how does someone plan the timing of when they need in-home assistance or transitioning into a residential community? Has that come up, a conversation come up for you?
I think it's, two things. One is physical ability, and the second one is emotional. So if I had PSP and Diane didn't, we would have to go to, substantial caregiving, or maybe move, because she can't physically handle me, whereas I can physically handle her. So part of it's a physical situation, and then part of it's emotional, because people with the disease, they require 24/7 care as they progress in the disease. And you just have to decide physically and emotionally. I mean, what it says is that if they're at 24/7 care, the caregiver has substantially less time for themselves. And so it's a decision that you just have to, and part of it's financial too. I mean, so you just have to kind of put it all in a pot and decide when the time's right to, and then what approach, whether you want to go in home or whether you want to move to a assisted living.
Thank you. Anyone else that you want to share your thoughts about the transition?
We don't have that yet. I don't have a lot to weigh in, only to say that, what I've been advised is just to learn about the options in advance. So really, learn about in-home care options, learn about outside home, and have that information together and those resources together, so that as things become more difficult and I can't handle it all on my own anymore, then instead of scrambling and being panicked, I have, some idea already about what our options are, and can weigh, what's the right thing.
You guys talked about transitioning or just options?
You cut out for Cathy.
Yep.
I didn't hear you.
I mean, one thing that Medicare does provide, I believe, with the diagnosis is counseling support, local counseling support that's paid for by Medicare to kind of help with this whole process about what's needed and what resources are available in the community.
Thank you, Doug. Really appreciate you all for sharing your insight and your expertise. I want to be mindful of the time. It's close to 12:30 here. I want to thank you all for sharing your personal experiences and to encourage and support others in similar situations. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And now I'll hand this over to Jessica.